1. General definition. Status quo bias refers to the tendency of individuals to prefer maintaining the current situation rather than making changes, even when better alternatives are available. This bias arises because people feel more comfortable with familiar conditions and tend to avoid the uncertainty associated with new options. In decision-making contexts, status quo bias often leads individuals to choose default options without conducting thorough evaluations. This indicates that decisions are not always based on rational analysis, but are also influenced by psychological factors. 2. Relevant theories/valid sources. Status quo bias can be explained through several behavioral and accounting theories. One of the key theories is prospect theory, which suggests that individuals are more sensitive to potential losses than to gains, leading them to avoid change. Additionally, behavioral decision theory explains that decision-making is often influenced by cognitive biases rather than purely rational thinking. In the accounting context, Libby and Hodge 2022 highlights how biases affect accountants' judgments. Zimmerman 2020 emphasizes the role of incentives and contracts in managerial decisions. Merchant and Vandersteed 2017 discusses how management control systems shape employee behavior. Furthermore, Schiff and Lewin 1974 examines biases in budgeting processes. 3. Relents to behavioral accounting ****. In behavioral accounting, status quo bias significantly affects various decision-making processes. For instance, in budgeting, managers tend to rely on previous budgets without making optimal adjustments. In investment decisions, individuals may continue with underperforming projects instead of switching to more profitable alternatives. Additionally, in financial reporting and auditing, accountants may repeatedly use the same methods due to familiarity rather than appropriateness. This demonstrates that accounting practices are not solely driven by standards and regulations, but are also influenced by human behavior and psychological tendencies. A manufacturing company faces a decision to replace its old production machinery with newer, more efficient technology. However, management decides to continue using the existing machines because they are familiar with the current system and fear the risks associated with adopting new technology. This decision is driven by comfort and risk aversion rather than an objective cost-benefit analysis. As a result, the company experiences higher production costs and reduced competitiveness in the market. This case illustrates how status quo bias can negatively impact organizational performance. 5. Conclusion. Status quo bias is a cognitive bias that can significantly influence the quality of decision-making, particularly in accounting and management contexts. The tendency to maintain existing conditions can hinder innovation and lead to suboptimal decisions. Therefore, it is important for managers and accountants to recognize this bias and minimize its effects by conducting more objective and rational analyses. By doing so, they can make more effective decisions that support organizational goals.